So you have a promise, a broken partnership, and now a massive £100 million legal battle. It's playing out in an international court, and we're going to dive into exactly why Rwanda is suing the United Kingdom over a migration treaty that was supposed to be this huge landmark deal. And this is the number right at the center of it all, £100 million. I mean, it's a huge sum. And for Rwanda, this isn't just some political ask. They're saying, no, this is a straight-up legal debt that the UK owes us.
So that really brings us to the big question, right? How on earth did a partnership that was supposed to manage migration completely fall apart and turn into this international legal showdown over so much money? Okay, let's break it all down.
All right, so what's happening now is that Rwanda has officially kicked off what's called arbitration proceedings against the UK. This is all going down at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in the Netherlands. Basically, this isn't just a political squabble anymore. They've brought in a neutral third party to settle the score, which makes it a formal, binding legal challenge.
Now, the document at the heart of this whole thing is called the Migration and Economic Development Partnership, or MEDP for short. And you've got to understand, this wasn't just some handshake deal. No, this was a fully, legally binding treaty. Its whole purpose was for both countries to work together on irregular migration, and it officially kicked in back in April of 2024.
You know, the timeline here is actually pretty interesting. So the treaty goes live in April 2024. Then, a little more than a year later, bam, Rwanda files for arbitration. But, and this is really the key detail, the treaty doesn't officially terminate until March 2026. Keep that date in mind because it is absolutely crucial for understanding Rwanda's whole case. So, where does this giant £100 million number actually come from? Well, it's not something they just made up. It's actually tied to very specific scheduled payments that were written right into the treaty.
See, that $100 million is really two separate payments of £50 million each. The first one was scheduled for April 2025, and the second for April 2026. And as far as Rwanda is concerned, these weren't suggestions or optional payments. They were concrete commitments spelled out in black and white.
And this is where it all started to go wrong. Towards the end of 2024, the UK basically came to Rwanda and said, hey, since we're going to end this whole thing, can you just forget about those payments? Rwanda's response was pretty much, whoa, hold on, not so fast. We might consider that, but only if we can negotiate a whole new financial deal. Well, guess what? That negotiation, it never happened. So this whole financial standoff leads us right to the core of the legal fight. The entire case really boils down to one fundamental question. When does a treaty stop being, well, a treaty? When do the obligations actually end?
Now, the UK government was very, very clear about its feelings, at least politically. They used some really strong language, saying the partnership was, and I'm quoting here, dead and buried. But here's the thing. Making a political statement is one thing. Legally terminating a treaty, that's a whole different ballgame.
And this really lays out the two completely different points of view. From the UK's side, it seems like they believe their political announcement was enough to just stop everything. But Rwanda's argument is much simpler, legally speaking. They're saying, look, the treaty was still active. It was in force. That means any promises made during that time, like those two £50 million payments, still have to be paid. You just can't cancel your debts after the fact. That's not how it works.
Okay, so even though that £100 million number is getting all the headlines, Rwanda's legal case is actually about more than that. It's not just about the money.
If you look at their official filing, they're actually making three distinct claims. Now, the first two are about the money, which we've talked about. But it's that third one that really shows another side to this whole dispute. It gets into a key humanitarian promise that was part of the original deal.
Yeah, this last claim is about people. A really important part of this treaty was a promise from the UK that they would resettle some of the most vulnerable refugees that Rwanda was already hosting. But according to the legal filing, the UK has just refused to do it, and Rwanda sees that as a huge breach of the treaty's humanitarian side. So you might be thinking, okay, why should I care about this? I don't live in London or Kigali. Well, this case matters because its outcome could really test a fundamental principle of international law. What's really on trial here is the reliability of international agreements. This case is asking a huge question. Can a country just decide to walk away from its legal and financial duties under a binding treaty just because a new government comes in or their political priorities change? And that leaves us with a final, really critical question. It's the one the arbitrators have to answer, and their decision's going to have ripples for how countries make deals with each other for years to come. Simply put, when the politics change, do legal promises still matter?